Jasmine Crockett at the center of a political twister. Again, the congresswoman from Texas has made waves by mocking Republicans and also fighting with people inside of her own party. So you see the screen, dim darling or dim danger. A new profile on Jasmine Crockett paints her as a brash, self-promoting and image-obsessed, right down to her locked screen photo of her own face. After finding out the reporter had interviewed her colleague, she tried to pull the plug on the story. Some Democrats are comparing Crockett's combative style to arson.
She's made quite the splash, becoming one of the most outspoken members on the left and looks like a rising star within the Democratic Party. But Crockett's rocket to stardom also comes at a cost. This week, The Atlantic publishing a lengthy profile of the 44-year-old. There was a lot of focus on her desire to make controversial comments. The Atlantic writing, Crockett is testing out the coarser insult comedy style attacks that the GOP has embraced under Trump, the general idea being that the Republicans go low, the Democrats should meet them there. But the article points out Crockett is still trying to shape her image and reportedly even tried to shut down this piece after the reporter involved reached out to multiple House members for their take on her. President Trump has certainly noticed what Crockett's been saying, making it clear that she could be the face of the party going forward. But pundits suggest that's not necessarily a recipe for success in Congress.
We've got a certain generation or class of lawmakers who have come in and they think being in Congress is about celebrity. It's about fame. I mean, these are people for whom the most dangerous place is to stand between them and a television camera.
Meanwhile,
because the Supreme Court has paved the way for half the stuff that we see that's going on. Listen, Donald Trump is a piece of shit. Okay, we know that. Yes, he is. But in a functioning democracy, he still would not be able to get away with this. But he's been able to get away with this because the House Republicans are complicit. He's been able to get away with this because Senate Republicans are complicit. But most importantly, the courts, especially the Supreme Court, is complicit. And so I think one of the places that we have to start is we are absolutely, they are the highest court in the land and they have no ethics guardrails. Now you go down to the lower courts and they do. How much sense does that make? When we know that they're taking money, we have the paper trail and they refuse to put guardrails on themselves. So it's time for us to do it for them.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Ghetto Congresswoman, Democrat Jasmine Crockett, who is being currently backstabbed, betrayed by the Democrat Party and her aides as well, too, because apparently nobody likes Jasmine Crockett, okay, despite the fact that she uses this ghetto style of leadership and, blowing smoke against President Trump and yipping and yapping and making a whole bunch of noise and fuss, right? It seems like nobody actually really likes her behind closed doors, right? People don't really like what Jasmine Crockett is doing or how she's portraying herself because it seems like it's really just all about her. Now, this comes as Jasmine Crockett has been panicking over the fact that you have reporters that are asking her colleagues about her on Capitol Hill. And I'm assuming that she's panicking about this because she knows that her colleagues aren't going to have great things to say.
I don't know if the subject of this radar is going to be the leader of the Democratic Party, but she is certainly an up-and-coming person of notability, a personality of notability. But is she really ready for prime time? I'm talking, of course, about Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas, a fiery progressive who has attracted significant media attention in the last, say, 6 months. Is also the subject of a new profile in Atlantic magazine. The Atlantic's Elaine Godfrey interviewed the Congresswoman and several of her colleagues. Now, what's drawn the profile to my attention, and as was the conversation about it on social media, it seems Crockett apparently doesn't quite understand how journalism works, because in the profile, there's this following passage. I'm quoting from it. Crockett said that people are free to disagree with her communication style, but that she was elected to speak up for the people that I represent. As for her colleagues, 4 days before this story was published, Crockett called me to express frustration that I had reached out to so many House members without telling her first. She told me, shutting down the profile and revoking all permissions. That's funny because you can't do that. Sorry, this is like one of the most basic rules of dealing with journalists. Sorry. once you've spoken to them on the record, you don't own the story anymore. They do. You can't stop them from covering you because you don't like that they reached out to other people. You have to decline to talk to them in the first place or set the terms in advance. As NBC's Sahil Kapoor put it, not that this is not how any of this works, but don't, of course, try to tell Jasmine Crockett any of that. She is bursting with self-confidence, according to this profile. In fact, she seems pretty unhappy. She was passed over for a top leadership position, chair of the House Oversight Committee. The profile recounts her personal feelings of betrayal. Their own caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, backed a different person. You see, Crockett believes she's the most qualified person for the job because, and I quote, "There's one clear person in the race that has the largest social media following." Generating attention, positive and also negative, is something she's quite good at, obviously. Is it really the case, however, that being provocative, spicy, contrarian, unfiltered, attention-seeking, and let's be honest, fairly bombastic and occasionally offensive, is that the best set of attributes for Democratic leadership? Who knows? Maybe it is. Certainly the Democratic base wants leaders to fight the Republicans, if only in virtue-signaling sort of ways that have nothing to do with actual power and policy. At least Crockett was willing to do this.
If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's
Hold on.
I'm
parliament.
trying to find clarification on what qualifies.
Chairman, motion to strike
I had no
those
idea
words.
what you just said.
We're not gonna do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just said
You
Jasmine
just
Crockett-
voted to do
Y'all did it
it.
first, so you don't want to talk about
voted
it.
to do it.
Order.
I'm trying to get
Okay.
clarification.
Look, calm down. Calm
No,
down.
because this
I
is
would
what
like to
y'all
get
do.
through proceedings.
So I'm trying
Hey,
to get
Miss
clarification.
Crockett, you're not
Y'all wanna
recognized.
play
Miss
games?
I can't hear
Crockett.
you with your yelling.
Yeah. So again, apparently Jasmine Crockett was panicking over the media asking questions about how her colleagues feel about her. And we're learning more about why that is. It's because apparently Jasmine Crockett is a very, very, very hard person to work with, and that she's really just all about herself. She's all about social media stardom, being an influencer rather than being a serious lawmaker. And that is essentially the takeaway from this article here in the New York Post, outlining how staffers feel about Jasmine Crockett. So again, these are her own people stabbing her in the back, as the Democrats have stabbed her in the back, rejecting her for leadership, and you're starting to see why, okay? Let's read here. Trump critic, Representative Jasmine Crockett is a no-show boss from hell who terrorizes staffers, aides say, all diva, no wow. Representative Jasmine Crockett has positioned herself as an unfiltered critic of President Trump, earning regular TV appearances and an enthusiastic online following, but congressional aides tell the Post that the Dallas Democrat is just as, quote, rude and mean to her own staff. The liberal loudmouth 44 has rocketed to fame since taking office in January 2023 as a fiery antagonist of the Republican president and his allies, but three sources who have worked with or for Crockett say she's rarely present when TV cameras aren't rolling and terrorizes staff when she does appear. Yeah, I mean, is that really a surprise that she's absent unless TV cameras are there, right? The person that is always on national television, that's everywhere, but yet she's not passing any legislation. It tells you where her priorities are at, right? Clearly her priorities are not with the American people or her constituents. Her priorities are with trying to advance her own career and her own fame and to fundraise. And this is why Democrats rejected her for leadership, right? She thought that she should be able to be leader of the Democrat Party because of her social media following, right? She thinks that social media following equals effectiveness, right? This is what she actually believes, okay? And she was shocked when Democrats stabbed her in the back and decided not to vote for her for leadership. Even the black congressional committee decided that they weren't going to support Jasmine Crockett. But she was shocked and surprised to find out that, wait, Democrats don't think that my social media following is a good qualification for leadership, right? And the thing is that you can kind of see this stuff showing up in public, right? If you pay attention to the Ghetto Congresswoman, the fact is she wants to be the center of attention. Like, for example, this clip right here of Jasmine Crockett trying to be the closing act of this big press conference that Democrats were having. And when she was told that, hey, you're not the closing act, that you're not closing out this press conference, she tried to close it out anyways, right? Even though it was clear that the press conference wasn't over. But again, because she wants to be the center of attention, she wants to be the one to close it out, right? She wants to be the closer, right? And she got shocked and surprised when Democrats said, nah, you're not the closer of this press conference.
On their names. I appreciate y'all. Is it? Oh, you're closer. Oh, we're done. We're done. Oh. We're done. No, we're done. Yes, we are. We done. That's what it says.
Okay. We were supposed to have Ron do the closing. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Sorry.
And you start to see a lot of this stuff come to light, that these people who claim to be quote unquote freedom fighters and they're fighting for the people, they're not fighting for the people. They're fighting for themselves. They're pretending to fight for the people, but they're fighting for themselves, enriching themselves, pretending to fight for the people. Because again, she hasn't done a damn thing in Congress, right, that positively impacts her constituents, but she's made a whole lot of noise. Crockett is not often found at her government-provided suite in the Longworth House office building, with one insider saying she prefers to work from her nearby luxury apartment building, sometimes for weeks on end. Quote, she's laying around her apartment, won't come into the office, and is really just indifferent to staff and will scream at them, the former aide said. Quote, she is never in the office and is very disengaged. She does her BS that goes viral and then freaks out over the most random things. A second source close to Crockett's team added, quote, it is widely known that she's not nice to staff and is not a really dedicated member focused on constituents. Again, anybody surprised? Shock, right? The woman that's always in front of the camera is spending more time doing that than actually, working for her constituents. Quote, she is focused almost exclusively on being an influencer, not a member of Congress, said a third source who has worked with Crockett, describing her as, quote, all diva, no wow. When Crockett does show up for work on Capitol Hill, often to attend a committee hearing where she deploys a made-for-social media attack on Trump, she prefers to have a staff member drive her the short distance to her office in a rented car rather than the staffer's own, a cheaper option commonly used by lawmakers. The staffer is expected to stand outside a vehicle, which has to be an Escalade or similar upscale make, and open the door for her. Quote, you're technically allowed to do this, but it's wildly inefficient. Instead of using the scheduler's car, she rents a car every week in D.C., one source said. Quote, she expects her staff to drive her around while she's in the back seat. They added, calling it a power play akin to treating the staffer like an Uber driver. Yeah, so basically what she's doing here is that she's taking the campaign funds that she's fundraising from these idiots across the country, right? Her making all this noise, okay? Her Ghetto Act, okay? She's taking all that money and she's using that money to ride around in Escalades, right? To pretend as if she is some very important person, right? So she's making her staffers go and rent Escalades, luxury vehicles, to drive her from her apartment to her office, right? Just to make a show out of it, just so that people think that she's some type of big shot, right? Again, this is a person who is very full of herself. Crockett, a former criminal defense attorney and Texas state legislator, burst into the national spotlight in May 2024 when she attacked Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene at a committee hearing for having a, quote, beach blonde, bad-built butch body after Greene ridiculed her fake eyelashes. While Crockett tried to fundraise off the Real Housewives-style viral clash, the Congresswoman's staff, which includes multiple gay and lesbian members, were left with mixed feelings. Complaints poured in from lesbians who objected to Crockett's derogatory use of the term butch to attack Greene, which even left some aides uneasy. Quote, she told her gay staff members, quote, that's not offensive. You're stupid if you think so. A former aide recounted to the Post. It's kind of like how Trump says, the gays love me. Yeah, so apparently Jasmine Crockett triggered some of her woke aides, right? So you have these people who work for Jasmine Crockett. She probably selected them because, again, they have some infinity stone of wokeness, right? So you're talking about people who are gay, lesbian, whatever. And she ended up offending them by trying to attack Marjorie Taylor Greene in ways that, again, people in the LGBT LGBT community think are derogatory towards LGBTQ people. And she told him to kick rocks, right? Kick rocks, which again tells you everything you need to know about how much she really cares about these people, right? She's using them, okay, in order to advance her own profile. 3 months later, Crockett was given a coveted speaking shot at the Democratic National Convention, where she ripped the former and future president as a vindictive, vile villain. Crockett has burned through employees at such a pace that she's becoming known as a present-day version of the late Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, long called the Capitol's toughest boss. A number of staff have become fed up with their treatment, while others have been fired or left on their own, a distinction often difficult to discern in Washington. Some former aides cited fear of retribution when declining to participate in the story. Quote, she thinks she's her own best advisor. She knows best and has this toxic staff environment. A source said she gets rid of press people because she's like, I do all the press stuff. On one occasion described to the Post, Crockett reduced a legislative aide to tears, bellowing, quote, do you really want to be here? And if not, you can leave. Another aide, a young black woman, was fired abruptly and confided to a colleague, quote, I don't want to hear Jasmine Crockett talk about helping black women when she just fired one for no reason. Capitol Hill jobs often are filled based on personal connections, and openings are circulated among friend groups. A source told the Post that a job listing for Crockett's team recently was shared among a large group of black Democratic women, but nobody expressed interest in the gig. So even the Soul Sisters don't want to work for her, right? That's how toxic it is to work for this woman. Quote, you would think working for a black woman, if you were a young black woman or a young person of color, you would feel empowered in that space, said a former Democratic congressional aide. Quote, but truly the only person that she thinks about and cares about is herself. Quote, the staff is really just an island onto itself because she doesn't care about the local issues happening in her district. This person added, she's more focused on, quote, get me on The View, get me on this late night talk show. Well, yeah, that makes sense because she's focused on being a social media star, focused on being an influencer rather than a serious lawmaker, right? And that's why it's a good thing that the Republicans are redistricting, and hopefully Jasmine Crockett loses her seat as a result of that because she doesn't deserve to be in Congress, right? She's there to be an agent of chaos. That's it. Quote, a lot of congressional hearings are on the most boring, basic ish. So how is it at every hearing, it's about Trump again and again, and it's like she's not actually doing any real work. She's at a hearing. We can be talking about the budget. They can be talking about appropriations, and she brings it back to Trump every time. The source griped. Quote, she causes some kind of tension and issue. The hearing has to stop. The chairman has to bang the gavel. It's like a spectacle in a show. Not everything has to be clipped for MSNBC, right? Facts. Crockett has also cycled through several chiefs of staff, with one observer saying, quote, it's because they want her to do her actual job, and the actual job of a member of Congress isn't fun or glamorous. So unless you are somebody willing to say yes to all of the outrageous things she would like you to do, you're not gonna last long. Yeah, so apparently you have Jasmine Crockett treating her staff like Dookie, right? Somebody who is not a pleasure to work with. She's very selfish, okay? She is somebody that Democrats should make their leader, right? That is what they should do, okay? If they want to win, they should make people like Jasmine Crockett the leader of the party, right? Because she totally will help Democrats win, okay? She's not a team player. She's not a good person, to be honest with you. But again, that's how a lot of these so-called freedom fighters are, right? These loud mouths that, again, claim to be holier than thou, like they are so much better than everybody else. Behind closed doors, they're some of the nastiest people that you can deal with. And it seems to me that Jasmine Crockett is really nasty behind closed doors, and that she's not a good person, that she's not fighting for her constituents. She's fighting for herself, her own stardom, her own fame, her own fortune, and that's it, right? She's in it for herself. She's not in it for anybody else except her. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.